Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Cyclone InCYders. I'm your host, Logan Murata, and joined alongside are my co-hosts, Garrett Kroger and Ben Elliott. So, fellas, the Cyclone football team played Texas on Saturday for homecoming, and they snapped their 3-game losing streak. But before we jump into things, we have a little recap from Lily Fauché. We're going to toss to that real quick, and then we'll get into it.
It's a chilly evening here at Jack Trice Stadium. It's homecoming for the ISU Cyclones, who are 2-5 and 7th in the Big 12. They're coming off of a tough 3-game stretch of facing the first, second, and third offenses in the nation. Tonight they're hosting the Texas Longhorns, who are 3-4 and 5th in the Big 12. So it's looking to be a good matchup. What a great day to be a Cyclone. ISU recorded its first shutout since November of 2013. It was a good game for ISU's new starting quarterback, Joel Lanning. He tallied career highs with 19 completions, 188 passing yards, and 64 rushing yards. Lanning also has 5 touchdown passes in the last 3 games. Sophomore Alan Lazard had another great game, being the 31st Cyclone with 1,000 career receiving yards and has caught at least 1 pass in all 19 career games. Redshirt senior Quentin Bundridge tied for 19th on ISU's career receiving yards list with 1,273. ISU's defense had a strong game against Texas. This is the second time this season they have pitched a first-half shutout. ISU is the first unranked team to shut out Texas since 1961. Cyclones defeated the Longhorns 24-0, which improves their overall record to 3-5 and 2-3 in the Big 12. Next week, the Cyclones face Oklahoma on the road. For InCYders, I'm Lily Fauché.
All right, thank you for that, Lily. So a 24-0 shutout on homecoming for the Cyclones. And Joel Lanning 1-0 as an ISU starting quarterback and 1-0 in the Big 12. Good start for him.
Definitely.
So Iowa State was the first unranked team to shut out the Longhorns since 1961. How did they do it? What went right for State's defense on Saturday? We'll start with you, Ben.
Yeah, definitely. The biggest thing the defense had going for them was the success of the offense. Throughout the entire game, Joel Lanning and the offense would drive it either down for a score, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown, or they'd at least get it to midfield to where a punt would pin Texas deep. So that way when Texas did have the occasional big play, were able to make somewhat of a drive, they really had to sustain a full drive, and they just weren't able to do it in the game, which led to that nice shutout. But the defense also came in with the right attitude. You could tell from the beginning of the game, they knew they could win this game if they played their best.
Yep.
They were able to force turnovers to play their assignments, and they just played an overall great game, which led to the shutout.
Yeah, and they control field position and time of possession during that game, which was huge. I had down, we talked about this last week, how they were able to stop Texas's bread and butter, their run game, and I just thought they did a great job of applying pressure with blitzes, particularly on pass plays. I mean, I think, they only had they only had 85 yards through the air, so I thought that was big, and I mean, the secondary was absolutely shut down. Garrett, what'd you have?
Yeah, I'm just going to piggyback off of you guys. The Iowa State defense played a really good game against Texas. As you mentioned, Iowa State stopped Texas' bread and butter, which was their running attack, and Texas only had 119 yards rushing against Iowa State on 32 carries, which was 3.7 yards per rush. That's well under Texas average this season. And also, as you mentioned, the passing, they were 12 for 22 for 85 yards and an interception. And also the time of possession, Iowa State had it for 37 minutes, while Texas had it for 23 minutes.
Yeah, and once again, 119 yards on the ground, 85 through the air. Both of those were the second lowest totals for Texas this season. Only against Notre Dame they had lower totals. So who gets your guys' defensive game ball? Who is the MVP of the defense? We'll start with you this time, Kroger.
Well, I'm going to go with the National Defensive Player of the Week, Jordan Harris. He had 7 tackles and that 1 pick. He played an outstanding game against Texas. So you have to give it to him, especially since he got National Defensive Player of the Week.
Yeah, and I like that. And that interception was great. It looked like Hurd was trying to throw that ball away, and he just snagged it right out of the air. That was nice. Who'd you have as your defensive game ball? Was it also Harris?
It was also Harris. I had Jordan Harris as well. I mean, you can't argue with his stats: 7 tackles, half for a loss, and that momentum-changing interception. Although I thought the gesture by Paul Rhodes giving the game ball to the defensive coordinator Wally Burnham, I thought that was a cool gesture for a coach that's been around for a long time. But yeah, definitely Jordan Harris. Like you said, Walter Camp Player of the Week. I can't argue with that. So.
Yeah, and I figured Harris would kind of be the player of the week or the defensive game for you guys. So I decided to be a little bit different. We didn't have Mankel on the show, so I had to be different. I gave mine to Nigel Tribune in this one. He was locked down in the pass game, and he had his hands in on some of those blitzes as well. He had 5 tackles, 1 for a loss, and 2 pass breakups. So great game for him and that defense as a whole. On the other side of the ball, Iowa State with 426 yards of offense, and Lanning goes 19 of 37 for 188 and a touchdown in his first start, also with 67 rushing yards, which I thought was big. And then Mike Warren with 157 yards rushing and a touchdown. But we'll start with Lanning. What did you think of Joel in his first start? And if you had to give him a grade, what grade would you give him? We'll start with you this time, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I'm giving Joel Lanning an A. He did what a quarterback needs to do. He went out there and he won the game. Did he put up any highlight flashy numbers? No, not really.
Yeah.
But did he turn the ball over?
No.
Did he put his team in the position to win the game? Yes. That's what you need out of your quarterback. That's what Iowa State has been looking for, is someone that can go out there and do what needs to be done. You know, it was an all-around great performance by the offense, but you can't give him any less than an A because he did his job, which led to a 24-0 victory.
Absolutely, and I also gave Joel an A in this one. I mean, he looked great. You saw some jitters early, some underthrown balls, but I mean, other than that, he looked great. I mean, over 50% passing with the touchdown, and notably, he escaped a lot of pressure. I mean, he made some plays with his feet and got some first downs that were huge and pivotal for them to carry out that momentum throughout the game. So I thought Joel looked great. I gave him an A. How about you, Kroger?
Yeah, I'll also give him an A. Mostly, as you guys said, he looked great. He led the team to a 24-0 victory over Texas team. And also, the thing I liked about Joel this past Saturday was when he was scrambling out, like rolling out of the pocket, he was checking for his wide receivers to get open first. He wasn't just like, oh, Alan Lazard's not open, or like Quinn Bunner's not open, oh, I'm going to just tuck the ball and run. He waited out until he knew nobody's going to get open, and then he would tuck the ball.
Yeah, and he checked his options, and he looked very shifty, I thought, getting between the tackles and escaping some of those pressure situations. So does Joel get your game ball for his great opening start, or did it go to somebody else? We'll start with you this time.
I'm going to go with somebody different because obviously you can give it to Joel because he got his first win.
Absolutely.
And also Mike Warren. But I'm going to go with DeAndre Daly.
Okay.
He had 3 catches for 52 yards and a touchdown. That's a great performance for like a 3rd, 4th receiver out there against this Texas team. So I'm going to give it to DeAndre Daly.
All right, DeAndre Daly with a great game. I'm going to go with the easy one. I mean, I think you could give it to Warren every single week, but I'm going to give it to Warren this week. His 5th rushing performance, over 100 yards, and he would have eclipsed the 1,000-yard mark, but they had a touchdown that was called back late in the game. He only has 46 yards to go, and he should get that this weekend against the Sooners. Did you go with Warren, Lanning, or Daly, or who'd you have?
I did not go with any of those guys. I actually went with the offensive line as a whole.
Okay, I like that.
When you have a running back putting up these numbers constantly and able to do it like he did again this past weekend, and you have a starting quarterback for the first time able to sit in the pocket and make a decision that leads to a win, you have to give it to the guys up front. Warren is the leading freshman rusher in the nation.
Yep.
Lanning was able to not make any major mistakes in the game because of the time he was given. And when he wasn't given time, they created holes for him to scramble. They held their assignments, and they weren't penalized very much. There weren't very many holding calls in that game. So my game ball, it's a little bit of a trick, but I'm giving it to the entire offensive line.
I like that. And then another, just a little tidbit to add about the rushing game. Joshua Thomas with his 6th rushing touchdown on the year. And I believe I think that ties the record for most of the season for a freshman. So congrats to him. But this weekend, the Cyclones get the number 14 Oklahoma Sooners in Norman. And we'll have more on that, as well as some reaction to the first college playoff football rankings. I know there's some controversy there. And even a little preview of the Iowa State basketball season, which starts Friday. But first, we're going to toss it to a break. Stay tuned. You're watching InCYders. Welcome back from the break. So we left off talking about Iowa State's dominant win over Texas. This week, they get Oklahoma. And OU, despite their lone loss to Texas in the Red River Shootout, they've looked like a much better team and a tougher opponent for Iowa State, especially on the road. So what are the 3 main keys to victory, or keys to playing well at least, against a strong Oklahoma team? Ben, we'll start with you.
Alrighty, I've got my 3 right here. Number 1 for me is you got to force turnovers or punts on at least half of OU's possessions.
Wow.
Because OU is going to score. They're going to put up touchdowns. We're not going to shut them out.
Yeah.
Like Iowa State was able to.
Much better offense.
OU, much stronger offense. But if the Cyclones can limit them to either a punt or a field goal on at least half of their drives, the Cyclones can score enough points to keep up with Oklahoma.
Yep.
And 2, I have for the Cyclone offense, they need to sustain long drives again, like they did versus Texas,
Yep.
and turn them into touchdowns. Eat up that clock. Make it difficult for OU to have the ball. And when they do have the ball, OU needs to capitalize. So I like what I saw with the Cyclones last week with those long drives. You don't have to put up, 50 points to beat OU.
Yep.
You can put up the 30, the 40, as long as you keep them from having the ball. And then third, you're going to need 1 or 2 big plays from special teams or defense. Cyclones have to have one of those faces of the game be big for them, whether it's a big punt return, big kick return, or even a couple turnovers, pick six, one of those, a momentum-changing play that really defines the rest of the game.
Absolutely. I think momentum will be huge as well. But first, we'll ask Kroger, what do you think are going to be the keys to victory or playing well, at least, against Oklahoma?
My 3 keys are, to start off with, play smart. As you mentioned, Oklahoma's lone loss was in the Red River shootout against Texas. In that game, Texas quarterbacks were 9 of 12 for 55 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And that's playing smart for Texas quarterbacks there. So play smart there, and then spread the wealth. Against Oklahoma, Texas had 3 running backs top over 75 yards rushing. So if Iowa State's able to spread the wealth around, make it not like just centered on like Mike Warren or like Joel Lanning's arm, that's a help out. And also stop Oklahoma's running game. Oklahoma is dominant in the run game, while Texas against Oklahoma, they held Perrine under 50 yards, Mixon under 50 yards, and Mayfield to -5 yards rushing.
Wow.
So if you stop Oklahoma's potent run attack, that should help out.
Yeah, and you keyed on my first point that I had was be physical on defense and stop that run. I mean, they've got strong backs there in Oklahoma. There's no question. Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon, both tough, and they're going to be behind a huge line. And like you said, when Texas beat Oklahoma, they limited the run and they saw success. And my second one, I think you keyed in on this a little bit, was don't let momentum take over and take over momentum yourself. It's in Norman. The Sooners have been playing angry since that Texas game. And with them being a possible playoff contender kind of sneaking in there, I think they'll try to make this a statement game if they can and, leave no question the playoff committee's heads. And then I also I think Lanning will have to be poised and they'll have to play big. You're able to rely on defense against Texas, kind of a one-dimensional Texas offense. But, Oklahoma's better, and they can pass the ball much better. And if ISU wants a chance to, get this upset on the road, they're going to need a leader on offense. Warren will likely get the yards that he's expected to get, and you have a great receiving core. I think the X factor will be Lanning there. So, speaking of Lanning, what must he do in his second start to prepare for the Oklahoma Sooners? A big, tough defense. They will be missing Eric Stryker, Zach Sanchez, one of their top corners. What do you have as your key for Lanning in his second start?
Play smart, obviously. Don't force any balls against this Oklahoma team. Against Texas, there were some times he threw off his back foot, and like some of his passes didn't look as crisp as they should be. So just don't try to force the ball against this Oklahoma defense, because Oklahoma defense is amazing. They're in the top 20 in defense this year. So if Lanning just plays smart, doesn't try to force any balls or like makes any stupid decisions, that should help out for Iowa State.
Absolutely. So did you have anything different besides decision making, or what do you think is going to be key for Lanning going into Oklahoma?
Yeah, I think he's going to need to take this confidence he's got from this Texas win and amplify it a little bit. Throwing for 188 yards and rushing for 67 is good against a Texas defense, but he's going to have to put up the similar or bigger numbers versus an Oklahoma defense, like Garrett was saying, is much better. But he's got the confidence now. He just led the Cyclones to a 24-0 win at home, first Big 12 win for his career. If he can take that and he can run with it a little bit, like Garrett was saying, he hit it on the head. He's got to play smart.
Yeah.
He can't do anything too silly with the ball. But if he can take that confidence and try a couple more deep throws, a couple big plays, and really take that momentum and run with it, it could be huge for him.
Yeah, and I also have that. I want him to take some risks, take some deep throws downfield. I think Oklahoma will bring some pressure. I mean, it's only his second start. And, I mean, they've got a great line. They've got monster D lineman Charles Tapper. He had 3 sacks last week. Granted, it was against Kansas, but they also have linebacker Eric Stryker, and he can do it all. He can blitz, and he can play back in coverage. Like I said earlier, they did lose Sanchez 2 weeks ago against Tech, so that could open up things downfield and give some favorable matchups to this receiving core. But how about the defense going up against Baker Mayfield, who's looked great this year, Maxwell candidate, and Perine, and, just everyone down there, Sterling Shepard. What do you guys have as your key for the defense going into this matchup? We'll start with you this time, Ben.
Yeah, the defense is going to need to eliminate big plays that Oklahoma's going to have. They have the big playability with guys like Baker Mayfield, like that strong run game like you were talking about.
Yep.
If you make Oklahoma sustain long drives and really work to score on the defense, then you have the opportunity to keep up in points with them.
Mm-hmm.
The Cyclones' key to victory will be keeping this game slow. Well, it's not going to need to be a shootout. They need to keep it within that 20 to 30 point range, and that's the best chance the Cyclones have at winning is if they make Oklahoma work to score.
Yeah, and I have the same thing. They've been playing all these up-tempo offenses lately, so I think controlling the time of possession, taking advantage of opportunities, that will be the key.
Mm-hmm.
And just playing physical defense. That's what I have as well. Kroger, did you have anything different?
No, not really. You guys just hit the nail on the head. But like as you guys mentioned, you have to stop the run defense of Oklahoma. ISU's run defense is 73 in the nation compared to their 97th pass defense. So obviously, Iowa State's strength this year on defense is the run defense. So force Oklahoma to pass the ball more.
Yep.
But also, don't let up on your offense. Because against Tennessee was up 17-0 on Oklahoma.
And they made that comeback.
And Oklahoma made that comeback at Tennessee because Tennessee kind of let up, and Oklahoma was able to just build momentum. So just don't let up against Oklahoma if Iowa State has that chance.
Absolutely. And that graphic we had up earlier, 45 points a game scoring for Oklahoma. There it is. And then 500 yards of offense per game versus 321 yards on defense. So all around, Oklahoma's a pretty solid team.
Definitely.
So what's your guys' final prediction with your score here? I mean, it's not a favorable matchup for Iowa State, but they are coming in with some momentum. Kroger, we'll start with you. Do you like the Cyclones or the Sooners in this one?
I'm going to sound very crazy here because I'm an optimistic
Okay.
Cyclone fan.
Hey, we love optimism here,
So somebody has
here
to be
on
optimistic
InCYders.
On the show. So I'm going to go with Iowa State somehow pulling up the upset
Okay.
and going 31-28.
Somehow.
Cole Netton redeems himself this season by kicking the winning field goal at the end of the game.
I like it. Yep. All right. How about you? Do you have Netton hitting the game winner? 60 yards?
I don't. I wish I did. I wish I could be as optimistic as you, Garrett.
Yep.
But I've got Oklahoma winning this one 35-17. Norman's such a hard place to play.
Yep.
Oklahoma's such a determined team and a disciplined team. There's no question Bob Stoops knows how to coach.
Yep.
I just don't see the Cyclones getting away with this. I don't see them getting blown out. Like I said, 35-17 OU.
Yeah, and I like the optimism. I'm going to have to be a pessimist as well. I like Iowa State's momentum coming out of the Texas game. I think Lanning changed, or the change to Lanning has reflected in our offense, kind of how it's been flowing. I think the Clones D will show well in the first half. I think Oklahoma makes a statement game, pulls away in the second. I'm going to go Sooners, 45-24 in this one. And looking forward for Iowa State, I mean, any hopes of a bowl game hinges on winning 4 or 5 games, and one of those is going to have to come against Oklahoma or Oklahoma State. Which team do you guys think have a better chance of upsetting, OU or Okie State? Kroger, we'll start with you.
Well, as I just mentioned, I think Oklahoma is the best chance to upset because if you're looking at it, against Oklahoma, Iowa State's only won like 5 times.
Yeah.
4 of those 5 times, they've beaten Oklahoma in Norman.
Wow.
So that bodes well for Iowa State. And Okie State, my opinion, is just the best Big 12 team.
Really?
Like better than Baylor and better than TCU.
Wow.
Yeah,
Like
that's a bold. I like that, though.
Because at the beginning of the year, I thought Oklahoma State had a strong chance to make it to the college football playoffs. So I'm going to go with Oklahoma as the best chance to be upset.
Okay, well, I'm going to differentiate here. I thought Oklahoma State was kind of the obvious choice for me, at least. They played a lot of Big 12 games pretty close. They played Texas close particularly. It's in Ames, and I just think Oklahoma's a more well-rounded team. Bob Stoops, I think, is a little bit better of a coach. So that's pretty much the reason I picked Oklahoma State. Did you go with OK State as well?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. I've got Oklahoma State. I understand they're undefeated. I understand they're a really strong team. But I don't think Iowa State, honestly, has a chance to upset Oklahoma State or Oklahoma. I'm just making my choice here.
Yeah.
But, it's hard to win in Norman. I know Iowa State's done it in the past. Doesn't make it any easier. And then we have Oklahoma State at home. Iowa State has played well at home this year. I think that's your best opportunity. But then again, I don't think either will happen.
Oklahoma State did struggle with Texas Tech and did have a mount to come back to win that game last week. So is a 6-win season very feasible? You said no?
Yeah, I don't think it's feasible. If you look at the remaining of the schedule, you've got Kansas State in Manhattan.
Yeah.
You can win that game, but it's hard, especially in Manhattan. West Virginia in Morgantown. Again, a winnable game, but not a guaranteed game, especially away. Like I said, Okie State at home, I don't think they get that game. And I don't think they get Oklahoma away. maybe I'm giving them one of the two games between K-State and West Virginia. I think they finish the year with a 4-8 record.
4-8 record for you. I also think the odds are very slim. I'd say if they pull off an upset against one of those Oklahoma teams, I think the odds get increasingly better. I think they carry some momentum, and they could be legit. I think they're much better than their record reflects.
Yes.
I mean, I think their losses have been mostly against teams. I can't remember the combined record off the top of my head, but I think there's only a few losses to those teams. But yeah, like you said, those two games on the road at the end. Even if it is K-State and West Virginia who have been struggling this year, it's on the road. Both tough games. I think the odds are very slim. What'd you say, Kroger? Do you think a 6-win season is feasible? Is the optimism still here?
Yes, the optimism is still here, obviously. I really see it happening. K-State and West Virginia are beatable this year. K-State and West Virginia have not looked good at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
K-State's down compared to last year. And
injured too.
Yeah, injuries have affected K-State this whole entire year. But I would say should have been in K-State last year. West Virginia is down because they don't look like the same team anymore from last year. And Paul Rhodes is due for an upset. He didn't have an upset last year.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
He deserves an upset this year. So feasible 6-win season, 6-6, optimistic right here.
I like it.
Go.
So Kroger says the Clones are going to be bowling this year. We'll see what happens. But first, we're going to look at the Big 12 games this week. We have Baylor K-State going on right now. Last time I looked, Baylor was up 21-7. I don't know if we can get an update on that, but who do you guys have in winning this one, Baylor or K-State? All right, there we go, 28-10. Obviously, right now we got to stick with the Bears, I imagine, even if it is in Manhattan. Jarrett Stidham was looking great last time I checked. He had 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown, so it doesn't look like the QB change is going to affect them too much as of right now. Moving on, we have Texas Tech at West Virginia. Kroger, who do you have in this one?
Oh, this one was probably the hardest one for me to pick.
Yeah.
But just going based off of that, I'm going to go with West Virginia, mostly because it's at home. Texas Tech defense isn't great. Yes, they have a great offense, but it's at West Virginia, so you have to give it to the Mountaineers.
Yeah, and Mountaineers are due for a Big 12 win. They're still 0-4 this year. I picked Tech last week, and it looked like they were going to pull the upset, and I looked like I was going to make a great pick, but they crumbled late against Oklahoma State. I'm going to give them one more chance, and I think the Pistols will be up in Morgantown. I think they hold on, and they pull off the victory.
I'm right there with you. I think Tech's got this. It'll be a close game. Both teams are strong offensively, not necessarily strong defensively. I've got Tech winning 56-52.
56-52, I like that. Entertaining games always in the Big 12. Moving on, we got probably the game of the week in the Big 12. TCU at Oklahoma State, and this will probably make a big difference in the playoff rankings looking into next week. I'll start with my pick. I'm going to go with TCU in this one. TCU has struggled on the road at times this year, but I think after that Oklahoma State game where they nearly collapsed and let Tech run away with it, that showed some vulnerability to me. And I think if TCU lights up the scoreboard, they're not going to be able to mount that same comeback. So I'm going to go with the Horned Frogs in this one. I think they make a big jump, and they're in the playoff rankings next week, or the top 4 at least. Kroger, who do you have?
As I mentioned before, I believe Oklahoma State's the best team in the Big 12, so I'm going to go give it to Oklahoma State.
Okay.
As you mentioned, TCU has struggled on the road this year.
Yeah.
But this Oklahoma State offense isn't like the other teams that they placed. The Oklahoma State offense is better than the K-State offense and better than the Iowa State offense.
Right.
So if TCU gets down early against this Oklahoma State offense, the Oklahoma State offense will easily keep on running up the score on this TCU defense.
All right. I like that pick. So we got a little bit differentiating picks here. So the breaker here. Are you picking TCU or Oklahoma State?
I've got the Horned Frogs as well. I think those rankings came out at the wrong time for Oklahoma State. I think TCU is going to come in mad after landing 8 in those rankings and look to make a statement win against a very talented Oklahoma State team. I've got TCU winning it. I think it'll be a good game, but I think TCU wins by a possession or 2.
All right, I like that. And we'll get into those rankings in just a little bit. And our last pick, Kansas at Texas. So we have a unanimous
Could
Texas.
you make a case for Kansas? Could you?
I don't think
No.
you can't make a case for Kansas. You're right.
I saw their coach was, this is a little off topic, but I saw their coach was inspiring them with the Royals winning the World Series. And
wow.
You're really reaching for something in Kansas.
That's rough.
And you're reaching for baseball. So Texas, are they going to win by 3 possessions,
I'm
over,
gonna say
under?
2.
2?
I've got
Okay.
a 28-0 shutout. They're going to be mad after last week, and I think they're coming to Lawrence. I mean, it's at home. I think
Yeah.
they're going to make a big statement.
Yeah, and I think they're also going to come out angry, but I do like that. They played close to Texas Tech, surprisingly, so we'll see what happens in that one. But moving on from Iowa State and Big 12, we're going to take a look at those college football playoff rankings. The first ones are out, and it seems like a majority of the folks aren't too happy about it. We're taking a look here. We have Clemson number 1, LSU 2, Ohio State 3, Alabama 4. That's the top 4. And then the next 4 out, we have Notre Dame, Baylor, Michigan State, and TCU. So who is too low? Who is too high? I think we might all think number 4 might be in the wrong place there. So I'll start off. I think obviously Bama is the controversial team, and I think that was the consensus reaction.
Mm-hmm.
I think Clemson at 1 was a little bit of a surprise. They've been playing great, don't get me wrong. But aside from beating Notre Dame, they haven't had the toughest schedule by any means. They did crush Miami, which was impressive, but not that impressive of a schedule for me. And, I think if you matched up against Michigan State, another undefeated team, or even TCU, they played much harder schedules. What do you guys think? Who's too high, too low? Who'd you have, Kroger?
Obviously, as you mentioned, Alabama was way too high for me.
Yeah.
I also feel like Stanford's a little bit too high at 11 for me.
Yeah.
Their one loss was against Northwestern.
In the opener, yep.
Yeah, in the opener. And really, they haven't beaten that many great teams in the Pac-12 because Pac-12 is down this year.
Yeah.
But that one loss against Northwestern to open up the season just kind of like made me feel, they shouldn't be that high. But too low, I'm going to go Oklahoma State. They're 8-0.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of one-loss teams that are higher than them. I don't understand how they're 14th. They should at least be top 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
And did you have anyone different? Did we kind of hit all the teams that you had?
I mean, I'm going to sound off on Alabama for a sec because I am so upset at where they got put in the rankings. I do not understand how a one-loss Alabama team who lost to Ole Miss, who's a good team, but not outstanding this year, is at 4 when they're in the same conference as a team I think might be a little too low in Florida, who granted lost their quarterback, but they've lost to LSU, who is, in that top 4 is number 2.
Yeah.
So, I mean, number 3. I don't understand how the ranking works. I think this is where the brand name problem comes in with the college football rankings, that it's Alabama. You have to assume they're good. They haven't even been blowing out their opponents. They barely got by Tennessee the other day.
Yeah.
I am very upset with how high they are, but I also think TCU is too low, being beneath Michigan State.
So perhaps an SEC bias or even a bias against the Big 12 in their strength of schedules. So which Big 12 teams do you guys have have the best shot, of making the playoff? Is it Baylor? Is it TCU? Or is it Oklahoma State? Who do you have, Kroger? We'll start with you.
As I mentioned before, I'm going to go back to Oklahoma State. But if it's not Oklahoma State, I'll give it to Baylor.
Okay.
I'm just not a big believer in TCU this year.
Yeah.
And I believe with any quarterback, Art Briles can do magnificent stuff. Stidham, he was the number 2 dual threat quarterback coming out of high school.
Yeah.
So he just adds a more running ability other than Russell. So either Oklahoma State or Baylor.
Yeah, and Stidham has had a number of snaps this year, even prior to getting his start. They put him in garbage time, and Shock Linwood, I feel like he's been just so overlooked this season.
Yes,
he's
definitely.
like one of the top rushers, and I think he's done it in like 121 carries or something like that. So great numbers for him. I like Baylor as well, but I think Oklahoma has a great shot. Outside looking in, other than that Texas game, that was their main hiccup, if you will, in the year, but I think they have a great opportunity to steal the conference this season and maybe a playoff spot. Who do you have?
I've got the winner of the TCU Baylor game.
I like that.
I don't know who that is right now. I put TCU in there. I think they're just so mad after last year that they have the opportunity to go in and beat Baylor. But both TCU and Baylor have back-heavy schedules.
Yeah.
They both have to play
All these teams do, it seems like.
It seems like the Big 12 is going to come into cage match these last 4 weeks. I do think TCU is going to come out of it. I think they've got the right mindset, and Gary Patterson is a great coach. I've got them in my Final Four, but like I said, if Baylor wins that game, I have Baylor in there.
Yeah, and that will be an exciting game. I know Baylor at TCU is the second to last week of the regular season, and then Oklahoma State is the last week.
Yep.
So that will be exciting to watch. So who do you guys have as your Final Four come January? Just the first rankings just came out, so it might be a little early, but who do you guys have? We'll start with you this time, Ben.
Yeah, I think they've got it right with Clemson. I don't see Clemson losing another game in the ACC. I think Ohio State's going to win out the Big Ten. They get another spot. Like I said, I've got TCU because I think they're going to win the Big 12, but I think any Big 12 team could get inserted in there, like we said. And 4, I've got Notre Dame because I don't think they're going to lose another game this season. Only tough game they really have left is Stanford, and Stanford's beatable. Like you said, they lost to Northwestern. I think the committee's big on Notre Dame, and I think they slide into that final spot.
All right, and how about you, Kroger? Who do you have?
Obviously, Clemson and LSU.
Yep.
And then whoever wins the Ohio State-Michigan State matchup, and whoever wins the Baylor-Oklahoma State matchup.
All right, yeah, I like that too. I have pretty much the same thing going down the line here. I have Clemson. I think as long as they beat Florida State, they'll likely go unbeaten. LSU, they do have a tough schedule going up. I think even if they do end up with one loss, they have a good shot of still making the playoffs. And we've seen that with the polls that they favor some SEC teams in their schedules. I have Baylor at 3. I like their chances. Stidham, I think, will fill the role pretty well. And then I like Ohio State, but I think their key, not just beating Michigan State, but beating Michigan. That'll be a tough game coming down to the end of the schedule. And if that happens, I think you could see the potential for Notre Dame sneaking in or a team like that. So what do you guys think is a team that can make a surprising run into the playoff here? Kroger, we'll start with you.
I like Paxton Lynch and the Memphis Tigers.
Yep, absolutely.
Great offense there. They beat Ole Miss. And also Justin Fourette, the head coach for them, used to be the offensive coordinator at TCU. So he knows how to play offense, and their defense is looking pretty impressive as well. So I'm going to give it to Memphis.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to see Memphis. They want to see a non-Power 5 conference team, and I think they could do it. They have the schedule
definitely.
at the end to make a run if the circumstances are right. They have Temple and Houston towards the end of the season. I think that'll be big for the Tigers if they can win both those games. Do you have Memphis as well, or who do you have?
I've actually got, as much as it pains me to say it, I have Iowa can make a run at it.
Oh, man.
It's hard for me to say. I think they'll lose a game, but if they don't and they end up winning that Big Ten championship as an undefeated team, it would be hard to keep them out with as competitive as the Big Ten is looking this year.
Yeah.
You got Michigan State, as you said, Michigan and Ohio State. If they end up on the top of that conference, it's going to be hard for the committee to keep them out. I don't think they'll do it, but I think it could happen.
Yeah, and Iowa, I think, has a great chance of finishing the regular season undefeated. I think they're the combined record of the teams they have to play going forward. I think they only have 4 or 5 wins. So Iowa has a great shot of winning out. And if they can win that Big Ten championship, they have a great chance of sneaking in. Then we'll jump into basketball season. That's coming up. We have the exhibitions going on for the women right now, but the regular season tips off next Friday. The women against Hampton and the men against Colorado. Great game to start the season, an interesting one. The men get their start at number 7, the highest ranking ever they've had in the top 25 polls. And if we can get a graphic maybe of the top 25 polls, just to get a little look there. But taking a look at their non-conference schedule, we have Iowa State number 7 there. But taking a look at their non-conference, what are some intriguing games you guys see? They do have a lot of cupcake games in there, some easy wins. But this Colorado one's interesting. Any others? Kroger, who do you think?
I have actually 2. I like the UNI game and the Cincinnati game. They're back-to-back non-conference games. And really, I feel like UNI or Cincinnati can pull up the upset. I really feel Iowa State might lose one of them. Out of those 2 games. So
you're being an optimist, man. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. I'm supposed to be an optimist, but that's for football. Basketball, you can be a little bit pessimistic.
Yeah, we got plenty of optimism there. I do like the UNI pick that you put on there. It's in a neutral location, and it always seems to be a close game. I think the last one we had to mount a 20-point comeback. I think it was 2013, and that was big for them. Another one I just thought was interesting that I like to throw out. It's only a possibility. It might not happen, but we might see a rematch of the tournament game against UAB.
Yeah.
I don't know what invitational we're playing in, but I know we play.
Emerald Coast Classic.
Okay, I know we played Virginia Tech in the first round of that, but if we see UAB again, then things get interesting there. Who do you have down as your interesting
I had
matchups?
Cincinnati as well.
Yep.
It's at Cincinnati, which is a really tough place to play. They're a basketball school. That's how they consider themselves. Not to mention they're incredibly physical. And if Iowa State gets down versus physical teams and starts not making their shots and things like that, we haven't seen the Steve Prohm system yet, but from what we've seen, physicality versus Iowa State doesn't always work well. That game scares me the most in the preseason.
So speaking of Prohm and how things might run differently, I mean, do you think things are going to be much different under Prohm versus Hoiberg? We'll start with you this time. Do you think they're going to run a little bit different system?
I think the offense will be very similar. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
That's what I've always been told. I think what you'll see is an improved defense. He's a coach who was able to kind of look from the outside at the program, see what needed to change in kind of an objective way, come in and do it. And I think it's pretty obvious to most people that the defense is kind of what lacked on Iowa State's side sometimes, especially for me in their rebounding. I think that was what lost the UAB game big time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have the bodies, we have the size to be a defensive team, and I think he's going to come in, and I think that's where his focus is going to be for the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll toss to you before I give my idea. Pretty much the same things down.
Oh, yeah, pretty much the offensive style looked similar. I looked up a stat, and I found out that per 100 offensive possessions, Murray State averaged 116.3 points, while Iowa State was 114.3 points.
Wow, so just as efficient.
Yeah, so it's very efficient. So both efficient offenses.
Yeah, and I think you'll see the same thing on offense. The up-tempo game. I think something will be interesting. Well, we might see Monte Morris transform. He'll still be a facilitator, don't get me wrong, but I think we'll see him more as a scoring guard. That role might emerge. We saw it kind of towards the end of last season, driving more towards the basket and taking some pull-up jumpers. I think he might emerge more as a scorer and not just a facilitator this year. But who do you think could have a breakout season this year under the Prom system? We'll start with you, Kroger.
Breakout system. Well, obviously Monte, because Prom is known for
history of guards.
Developing point guards as Isaiah Cannon and
Cameron Payne.
Yeah, Payne are both first-round draft picks. But I'm going to go with somebody who's coming off the bench-wise.
Okay.
I'm going to say Carter, Simeon Carter.
Yeah, lengthy guy.
Yeah, lengthy guy, and that's what Iowa State really needs. If you look at it, Iowa State doesn't really have the height. Like Jamel McKay's the tallest at 6'9". So Carter can come off the bench, add a little bit more height at 6'8", 6'9". So I'm going to go with Carter.
Yeah, and I did a story actually for Cyclone's TV on some of the newcomers, and Carter actually didn't start playing basketball until high school. So, he's come so far so fast. And, mad potential with Carter, great length. I think he'll be huge on defensive rebounding for sure. Who do you have as a breakout player in the Prom system?
I've got, like you were saying, Monte is the easy one to go with, the Prom system with guards, and you touched on it perfect. I think he's going to become a scoring guard. If you look 2 years ago, Iowa State, when they made that deep run in the tournament, they had a guy named DeAndre Kane who could just go to the basket and get work done. I think Iowa State is able to score in many different ways already, and having a guard that will be able to get to the basket, like we're talking about, I think people are already big on him. He's already an NBA prospect. I think he's going to take it to that next level to where you could see him as an early first-round pick, possibly if he really fills his potential.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Morris will have a big season. My breakout player is Deontay Burton. He will miss part of the first half of the season because of eligibility, or it's like the NCAA transfer rules or whatever. But I think Burton will be huge. With the absence or the graduation of Dustin Hogue, rather, I think he'll emerge as a defender. And I think that's the big emphasis on Prom this season is to add defense. And he's a very physical guy. He'll put up highlight dunks, get Hilton on his feet. He'll be a big momentum player, big defensive playmaker, I think. I like Deontay Burton as a breakout player. That's all we have this week for InCYders. We'll save the preview of the Colorado game for next week, but that's all we have. Tune in next week, same place, same time. Thanks for joining us.